Jake Paul's California mansion has been raided by the FBI, multiple news organizations report. You can see in this aerial footage agents in uniform outside his home in
Anthony Joshua's name comes up. It represents more than just a specific fight. It points to a bigger concept. What takes place once carefully structured settings fall away, and a box of faces an opponent who can't be steered, shielded, or controlled by contractual details. At the top tier of competition, the truth eventually surfaces, and no amount of promotion can permanently conceal the flaws that only real opposition brings.
The attorney says he was out of state and not at his Calabasas home during that raid today. The FBI says they're investigating allegations of criminal acts for an incident that he's known for being in the public eye. But today, YouTube star Jake Paul is making headlines after an FBI raid at his home in Calabasas. Sky 5 was over the scene Wednesday morning as federal agents entered Paul's home in a gated community off Mulholland Highway. 24 feds summoned tactical gear could be seen carrying evidence from the property, including several firearms. After the search, a SWAT team was seen.
Storyline so unpredictable is exactly what holds the audience in place. Every claim sparks another video, another sit-down, another rebuttal, followed by fresh analysis, creating a cycle where suspicion turns into spectacle. And the controversy itself fuels clicks, reactions, and non-stop discussion throughout MMA and boxing coverage. From a pure audience retention standpoint, it succeeds because it mixes tension, alleged misconduct, influential voices, and unanswered doubts, drawing viewers in with the suggestion that the next detail could either validate their assumptions or completely overturn the version of events they believed was true.
Weight differences, the weight difference in there, I only know one man that'll do the weight difference like that, and that's the Bronze Bomber. You know, for me, in my opinion, I think it's scripted a little bit because, you know, of the weight difference, and, you know, Joshua's a former, you know, champion. And also, you know, he's current, he's active, you know, and this is going to be the first time that we see Paul, you know, fighting an active fighter. You know what I mean? We seen the Mike Tyson, that was all fun, that was cute, you know what I'm saying? It's fun and games and stuff, but now you're dealing with a...
This isn't only about Jake Paul. It reflects a larger divide between traditional fight culture and the influencer-style business model, where branding and control can overshadow authenticity. His credibility won't be restored through words, but through action. If he chooses real challenges over safe matchups and competition over spectacle, opinions can shift. If not, many will believe the image was never genuine to begin with.
A couple of hours, there's been some reports about an apparent leaked script. Have you seen this?
Move on. If people think that he's going to do a quick two-step and do this, and this, I hope he just goes out and takes his head clean off with the first punch and lets him know who Tommy Fury actually is. There's one interview, and I'm going to name it now, Lyndon Arthur, absolute fantastic, that man. I don't read that much on social media because it's all bullshit, but Lyndon Arthur, thank you very much. From me to you, you said something about Tommy being a proper fighter, can really punch, one of the hardest punches he's been in. Now, for Lyndon Arthur to go and say that, Lyndon Arthur is a proper hard, tough man. We all know that. So, Lyndon, respect. Thank you.
Discussion about Jake Paul wasn't triggered by one strike or one event. It came when boxing and MMA fans collectively began to feel that showmanship, image building, and carefully chosen opponents were taking priority over true competitive integrity. Once figures like Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, Oscar de la Hoya, Dana White, and Michael Bisping became part of the conversation, many supporters of the sport started viewing Paul less as a traditional competitor and more as a representation of a constructed era, one where storytelling often receives more promotion.
Did you start to take your foot off the gas just a little bit because you noticed he was tiring out?
Yeah, definitely a bit. You know, I wanted to give the fans a show, but I didn't want to hurt someone that didn't need to be hurt.
Did you carry Mike?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. Yeah, like there was a point where, you know, I was just like, okay, he's not really engaging back. And so I don't know if he's tired or whatever. And I could just tell, you know, his age was showing a little bit. And I just have so much respect for him. And that like violence war thing between us, like after he slapped me, I wanted to, you know, be aggressive and take him down and knock him out and all that stuff. But that kind of went away as the rounds went on.
The press conference intensified the debate, but in combat sports, true turning points are rarely dramatic or clue-cut. Jake Paul's climb was scrutinized not just for results, but for how those results were structured and promoted. leading fans to question whether they were seeing genuine competition or packaged entertainment. When figures like Deontay Wilder and Oscar de la Hoya voiced outs, it reinforced suspicions already circulating, especially as viewers noticed details, from fight terms to opponent selection, that felt closer to exhibitions than traditional
performance-enhancing drugs.
If taking Viagra counts, then yes.
I'm gonna need a yes or a no.
No.
It's true.
Lucky you.
Dr. Stuart Fisher, author of Little Book of Big Medical...
more momentum when Jake Paul acknowledged that he had held back at certain points in a fight. On its own, that comment might be interpreted as restraint or professionalism, but within the broader debate, it fueled further doubt. In top-level boxing, a competitor isn't expected to reduce the threat for the person across the ring, so the remark led many to question whether some bouts were being managed for presentation rather than decided purely by competitive urgency. The issue of drug testing added another layer, especially after Dana White publicly called for greater transparency, positioning it as a legitimacy issue rather than rumor. With no widely shared, independently confirmed test documentation available, critics used the lack of clarity to support their theories, pointing to noticeable physical transformations, past reluctance towards strict anti-doping terms, and commentary from insiders to sustain a controversy that continued to...
Publicly stated that I use cocaine. I do not. So I told you, you could randomly cocaine test me for the next 10 years. I believe that you're a cheater, and I believe that you use steroids. So I want to randomly steroid test you for the next 2 years. And that thing that you came out with today, nobody on earth thinks that you really wrote that. You're too stupid.
Online breakdowns and remarks from voices such as Dylan Danish further intensified the debate. It wasn't that allegations alone confirmed wrongdoing, but the growing number of perspectives shaped an environment where silence seemed less convincing than openness, and each decision not to release supporting evidence appeared to fans as yet another unresolved entry on an expanding list of concerns. Statements from executives at most valuable promotions relied largely on formal legal terminology and warnings about defamation. While that approach is typical in major business disputes, it can clash with fight culture, where credibility is often built through clarity. Legal threats rarely persuade supporters that results are genuine and instead can give the impression that safeguarding reputation matters more than direct.
It up wants to do testing, and he wants to do a set date before the fight. Okay, so he did the cycle, he did whatever, and now he's gonna try to take a piss test and clear it and be like, oh, I'm clean. That doesn't count. Okay, it doesn't count. With the money that he has, you can have a doctor clean your system in over 24 hours. Cheeto Vera just went on that podcast and said, you know that. So him doing this is another scam that he does. He's a bullshit artist. He just lies. Everybody knows he's on juice. He's admitted taking peptides. There's doctors that have him in the office saying we're giving him peptides on their website. So like, it's just bullshit. And I don't even care about the steroids thing. It's just like, what are we doing here? He has every advantage. He gets to pick the reps. He gets to pick the fucking judge.
Resonated strongly because it was measured and grounded in experience, highlighting that Jake Paul's opponents were often retired, older, or drawn from celebrity circles. His one fight against a boxer of comparable skill, including the match with Tommy Fury, ended in loss, reinforcing the argument from critics that true credibility requires consistently competing against top-tier, motivated professionals.
There has never once in Jake Paul's career been any talk of that sort, of anything to do with the fight being anything but a real fight that has exactly the same situation as any professional fight. And that's exactly the same thing here for the Anthony Joshua fight. It's just beyond mind-blowing that people would think that. Anthony Joshua was on record saying that if he didn't finish him in the first round, that would be disappointing, that it would be a failure. The narrative changed as we got closer to fight night and obviously post-fight, and I understand why, but they were pretty adamant it would take max 2 rounds to knock out Jake.
Storyline heightened scrutiny. Because even without formal charges or clear resolutions, frequent brushes with controversy influence public perception. In the fight community, where reputation carries weight alongside results, each news headline reinforces the idea that turmoil seems to shadow Paul wherever his bouts are turned into entertainment.
In the public eye, but today, YouTube star Jake Paul is making headlines after an FBI raid at his home in Calabasas. Sky 5 was over the scene Wednesday morning as federal agents entered Paul's home in a gated community off Mulholland Highway. 24 feds, some in tactical gear, could be seen carrying evidence from the property, including several firearms. After the search, a SWAT team was seen leaving in a procession of law enforcement.
Bika One isn't claiming every fight was staged or every allegation true, but that Jake Paul's career has been carefully orchestrated, from opponent selection to promotional spin, creating a sense for fans that authenticity is assumed rather than proven. Meanwhile, for Anthony Joshua, Eddie Hearn, and Tyson Fury coexist for elite athletes, while voices like Carl Froch,